The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
The weekend.
The weekend that was.
We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating.
Another one of the few games in Week 14 that didn't really have any playoff implications. Kansas City Chiefs traveled to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Browns have been playing good football of late, winners of 2 straight, looking to make it 3 straight. Kansas City, on the other hand, just won their second game of the season, looking to get their first 2-game winning streak of the season. And they started off well. They started off like gangbusters. First play of the game, Jamal Charles, 80-yard touchdown run. Can't start the game any better than that. Maybe except for an opening kickoff return for a touchdown. But this is the next best thing. Either way, they were on the scoreboard first 7-0. And you're thinking, hey, maybe Kansas City is on to something late in the season. Nope. They didn't score another point in this game. I mean, they let the Cleveland Browns run off 30 unanswered points in this game. And really, what it boiled down to was they made the play on offense. And they played solid defense for the most part early on. Then they allowed Travis Benjamin a 93-yard punt return for a touchdown. That knotted the game up at 7. And they started making mistakes. And when you make mistakes and you're not a good football team, you're going to lose games. You can't go on the road and make mistakes and you're not a good football team. That's too many things against you. You're starting to compound things that make you lose football games. You're on the road, you're not a good team, and you're making mistakes. You got to lose a football game if you're going to do that. And so that's what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs. They allowed the Cleveland Browns to run off 30 straight points. They won the football game. Browns were very efficient. They ran the football. Brandon Weeden, they didn't ask him to do much, just complete passes, and that's what he did. They win the game 30-7. Browns go to 5-8 on the season. Chiefs go to 2-11 on the season. Let's look at the mistake meter for this game. The Browns only had 2. Meanwhile, the Chiefs had 6. That's the difference in the game. I mean, right there tells you the story. Let's go over these mistakes quickly and tell you exactly what they were. The Chiefs had a 10, not getting points in the red zone. You're not a good enough team to do that. No team in the NFL can afford to not get points in the red zone. But when you're a 2-11 team, you can't afford to not get points when you're in the red zone. And we already know the Chiefs don't like to score points. So for them to go into the red zone and not come away with something, can't happen. They missed a field goal in this instance. Hit it off the upright. That's always a bad omen. You miss a field goal and you hit the upright, chances of you winning that game are slim to none because that's the football gods telling you that it's not your day. And he clanked the uprights, missed the field goal. Got to get points when you're in the red zone. They had a defensive penalty that extended the drive of the Browns. The Browns were in like 3rd and 17. They get a silly face mask penalty. You can't do that. You know, you got guys around the football. Just make the tackle, move on, get the punt team on the field. Instead, they make a silly mistake. You know, they also had a roughing the passer on the same play. So they were going to give it up either way. They had 2 number 1s. That means they dropped 2 interceptions in this game. You can't afford to drop interceptions. They actually had 1 dropped interception. And then Montario Hardesty fumbles on the 1-yard line. And this is big because the Browns were going in for points. He fumbles the ball. They don't recover it. That's an opportunity to have the ball change hands and also take points off the scoreboard for the Cleveland Browns. They didn't take advantage of it. Those are mistakes. You look at another number 10. They get in the red zone, and at this point, they have to go for it. You can't settle for a field goal now because you're so far behind. You got to go for it. They didn't get it. They were in the red zone. That's a mistake. Got to get points. But at that point, I had to put it down because it was a mistake, because they were in the red zone and didn't come away with something, but they had to go for it. They just didn't get it. And they had a number 5, any act that takes points off the scoreboard or puts them on And again, when you're a bad football team, you can't afford to give it up. You can't afford to give it up. And they just struggled in this game, did the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at the Cleveland Browns in this game, they had one possession where they got in the red zone. Brandon Weeden threw 2 touchdown passes on 2 separate occasions. Both of them called back because of penalties. They ended up having to settle for a field goal. Can't have that happen. Luckily enough for them, they were playing the Chiefs. It's okay. It's perfectly okay. It's fine. You're playing the Chiefs. No harm done. Just 2 mistakes. Doesn't matter. The Chiefs made 6. You only made 2. You win the football game. In a rout, 30-7, taking your record to 5-8 on the season. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs are now 2-11. So the next game up on the slate sees the Tennessee Titans traveling to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Family business. Again, another game that earlier in the season really changed the fate of 2 teams. Titans were winners of 2 straight, looking to get back to 500 on the season, with the Colts coming to town, a team that hadn't won on the road in almost a year and a half. They allowed the Colts to come into L.P. Field, get a win. Bad loss for the Titans. They lose that game, and they go downhill from there. Meanwhile, the Colts never looked back after that game. They were a different team after getting that road victory. It's like that was the one thing holding them back from being a consistent football team. They get that road win, and all of a sudden they think they can win anywhere, and they start playing good football. 2 months later, the Colts are 9-4, looking to make it to the postseason. The Titans are 4-9, and these 2 teams just went in opposite directions. And that's what a loss at home to a divisional foe can do to you. Same thing happened to the Panthers and the Falcons. We talked about that earlier. So this was a chance to exact a measure of revenge if you are the Tennessee Titans. And they came out and they started this game off like gangbusters. I thought that. And I sat here in this chair, and I have all season long, and talked bad about Jake Locker and how I don't think he's ready to be a consistent NFL starter right now. I think he needs to sit down and watch more. He was razor sharp in this football game early on. I mean, some of the throws he was making, I was so impressed. I mean, they were right on the money. Kenny Britt was an animal in this game. And see, that's the Kenny Britt that always has you confused, because one week he's injured, the next week he's 2 catches for 14 yards. And then he has a game like this where it's like 7 catches, 140, 160 yards, a score or 2, and you're like, man, Kenny, that's impressive. You need to do that all the time. Every time you think Kenny Britt is on the verge of emerging as a elite receiver in the National Football League, he gets injured. And then it takes him a while to get back on the horse, and you forget about him. And of course he plays in Tennessee, so it's easy to forget about him. But in this game, Kenny Britt was dominant. And the reason why he was allowed to be dominant was because Jake Locker was throwing the football efficiently and effectively. Very sharp in this game early on. He started the game about 9 of 10, and he was on the money, pinpoint accuracy. And they jumped out to a 20-7 lead, did the Tennessee Titans. I mean, every week Andrew Luck's going to give you 1, 2, maybe 3 opportunities to pick him off. That's the thing that I don't understand about a lot of these people out here who are drooling over Andrew Luck. Yeah, they're winning games. They also play in the AFC South. And by the way, they played some really bad teams this season. I mean, the Colts were the worst team in that division. So you get last place teams in the AFC to play. They took care of all the teams that they were supposed to. I'll give them that much. They beat some good teams along the way. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Packers. So they played some good teams and beat them. But Andrew Luck turns the ball over way too much for me. I can't deal with turnovers. And he did it again in this game. He had 1 interception. You can't have it happen. You can't be getting sacked and just want to get rid of the ball and throw it right into the stomach of a defender who takes it to the house. I mean, they're going to make it to the postseason. But if he continues to make mistakes like this, remember that Patriots game a couple weeks back where they just got demolished, 50-something to 24, 59-24, something like that? Remember that game? That's exactly what's going to happen to this Colts team. They run up against a team that plays defense and can score points, which is what you usually find in the postseason. If they play like this, they're going to run into a division winner that's going to steamroll them, because Andrew Luck turns it over too much. The Colts ask him to throw it way too much. every single game. I thought that Vic Ballard had a great game. They need to run the football more. But they ask way too much of Andrew Luck. He turns it over. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. He just makes too many of them. You know, for all the good throws that he makes, there's going to be 2, 3, maybe 4, even maybe 5 stinkers in that game, and 2 or 3 of those are going to result in a turnover. Can't happen if you want to win games in the postseason. But they were able to get it done because the Tennessee Titans aren't a good team. And they shot themselves in the foot, made mistakes. Referees missed a call in this game that ended up really changing the face of this game. Okay, the Colts are punting the football. They have a false start on the play. The tight end jumps on the play before the ball snapped. All the Tennessee Titan members are standing up and pointing. Hey, he jumped, he jumped. They don't call it. So Pat McAfee kicks the football out of bounds at the 1-yard line. Perfect coffin corner kick. You don't see that anymore. That's a lost art in the National Football League. Punters don't coffin kick. They kick it, it bounces, someone downs it. But he kicked it directionally out of bounds at the 1-yard line. You just don't see that done anymore. So instead of that being a penalty, having them back up 5 yards and having to kick it again, they get the ball through the Tennessee Titans at the 1-yard line. The very next play, Jake Locker throws a pick six. And that was your game right there. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. They ultimately ended up taking the lead one more time at 23-21 in this game. But you throw a pick six on the road, close ball game, family business, you're probably not going to win. And so Andrew Luck was able to, get this Colts team in position to knock home a couple of field goals. Titans turn it over. They get another field goal. They win the game 27-23. Run their record to 9-4 in the season due to Colts. Meanwhile, the Titans, who had a valiant effort in this game, officials made a bad call or a no call, and they turned it over. They made mistakes. They lose this game, and they go to 4-9 on the season. Let's look at the mistake meter for this game. And you'll see both teams had 5 mistakes. It was an evenly played game. But when you're a bad football team, you can't afford to make mistakes. See, the Colts can make mistakes because they found ways to win games. They're 9-4. They found ways to overcome mistakes this season. You, on the other hand, are 4-9. You can't make mistakes. Not the mistakes that you made. And see, both teams can have 5 mistakes. But what are your 5 mistakes? That's the difference. Let's look at them. Both teams threw pick sixes. So let's look at these mistakes. The Tennessee Titans had a 5. Any act that puts points on the board or takes them away, they threw a pick six. So right there, that's terrible. You can't do that. You can't throw a pick six. This was a pick six on the 1-yard line nonetheless. I mean, it was a 1-yard touchdown return. Can't have it happen. You look at the next one, a number 1. They had an opportunity to recover a fumble. Ball's on the ground. It's around. It's squirting around. Several Titans have an opportunity to recover this fumble. They don't. Got to take advantage of opportunities when they afford themselves. They had a chance to recover a fumble. They didn't do so. You're not a good team. You need every break to go your way. You need to make your breaks. They didn't make their break. They had an 8. Failed attempt at a receiver down the field. Look, he was good in this game, was Jake Locker. Better than I've seen. Even though he had some mistakes, I think he ended up with about 2 interceptions in this game. Still, I like the way he played in this game. He uses his legs. You know he's a guy that once he gets out of the pocket, he's even more dangerous than he is in the pocket. But he missed the open receiver. Was in the end zone. He had a wide open rookie receiver, Kendall Wright, in the end zone. Wide open. Didn't get much open than this. He missed him. They ended up kicking a field goal. Those are the kind of mistakes that lose you ball games. You lose by 4 in this game. That's a 4-point swing because you kick a field goal instead of getting a 7. Again, you're a bad team. You can't have that happen. They had another 5, which was taking points off of the scoreboard. That's the same play I'm referencing with the Kendall Wright play. That's taking points off the board. You missed an open receiver in the end zone. So that's a double whammy. You also have a number 1. Andrew Luck fumbled a snap. They recovered it. But didn't count offsides, and really this offsides didn't force that fumble. Didn't force that fumble. He fumbled this on his own. So had he not jumped offsides, you recover that fumble as your football. Again, mistakes that cost you change of possession. Can't have it happen. They did. They lose this game. You look at the Colts' mistakes. They had an 8. Missed an open receiver. T.Y. Hilton wide open down the field. He catches it in stride, probably scores a touchdown instead. Andrew Luck missed him, overshot him. It happens. A 5. Andrew Luck throws a pick 6 in this game. Can't have that happen again. When you start playing good teams, you throw pick 6s, you're probably going to lose the game. That's the second week in a row Andrew Luck has thrown a pick 6. He's got to stop turning the football over so much. Because when you play good teams, if he does this against Houston next week, trust me, there will be no comeback heroics from Andrew Luck. They're going to lose the game, and they're probably going to get blown out if they decide to turn it over next week. You look at a number 3, a defensive penalty that extends a drive on 3rd and 10 or longer. They had one of those in this game. They had another 8, which is another opportunity to put points on the board, either open receiver in the end zone or a play of 30 yards or longer down the field with an open receiver that you missed on a connection. They had another one of those. They had an open receiver down the field. He just flat out dropped the football. I mean, this was a touchdown, and he just dropped it. Can't have that happen again. When you start playing better teams, you got to catch the football. Have to catch the football when you're open. You don't get open often in this league. Got to take advantage of it when you do. And they had a 6, which is a frivolous misuse of a timeout in the second half. Didn't come back to bite them, as they were the team with the lead. And so timeouts weren't really an issue for them, but still, can't waste timeouts. They could have been the team trailing 21-23 in this game. Not the Titans. So you need to have your timeouts. They had to burn one early in the second half, and so that was a mistake as well. But didn't come back to haunt them. They get the win, 27-23. They go to 9-4. Meanwhile, Titans drop to 4-9 on the season. Not much to say here about this game. It's a shame that one of these teams even has the opportunity to make the postseason, but the Jets are still alive in the AFC playoff race. They traveled to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. This was an ugly game. Wasn't fun to watch. This was one of those, I had to watch it because it's my job to games. If I didn't have to watch this game, I wouldn't have. This was an ugly game, and I don't like the Jets. I think that's apparent if you've been watching this show. I don't like the Jets. So, Mark Sanchez, he had another one of these games where they just babysat him. You just don't cost us a game. We're going to run the football, a lot of short passes. You just do enough to get us in position to run it in the end zone. Not going to ask you to do anything special. Just don't turn it over. Don't shoot us in the foot. And for the most part, he didn't. Another one of these pedestrian efforts. Less than 100 yards passing. Maybe he was slightly over it. It doesn't matter. His impact on the game was minimal. They ran the football well in this game. Defense stood up. Got turnovers when the Jaguars threatened. They did enough to win this game 17-10, did the Jets. Let's look at the mistake meter in this game. Jags made 2 mistakes. And the Jets won the game because they didn't make any mistakes. They were the cleaner team in this game. They got it done. When talking about the mistakes, Jacksonville had a 10 and a 5. They occurred on the same play. They didn't score in the red zone. Pass was batted up in the air. Bart Scott picked it off. You're taking points off the board when you do that. So hence the 10 and the 5. You're not a good team. You're at home. You got to find a way to not turn it over, get points when you're in the red zone. They didn't get it done. They lose this game. It's crazy for me to be even saying this, but the Jets have a shot in the AFC playoffs, even though they're 6-7. They're not a good football team. They don't deserve to go anywhere. They're not going to go to the playoffs. But me even having to discuss them going to the postseason makes me sick to my stomach. But Mark Sanchez and his Jets group, they're not going to beat anyone in the postseason. If they go to the postseason, it'll be much like that Thanksgiving game. They'll get blown out because they're not a good team. They weren't good in this game. They just happened to be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was enough to get them the victory, 17-10. They win this game. They go to 6-7 on the season. They're still alive in the AFC playoffs for that 6th and final spot in the AFC wildcard race. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars haven't played good of late. After showing up on the radar screen against the Houston Texans, and coming home the next week and winning a game for the first time in a long time in their season. They've dropped 2 straight, and they look like a team that isn't any good. And so now they're back to their normal selves. And I said on the preview show on Friday that they needed Cecil Shorts III in order to have a shot in this game. He didn't play. They lose this game. And you could tell there was no explosion on this team offensively, and their receivers were dropping the ball left and right. And that's what happens when you don't have your go-to guy on the football field. They lose this game 17-10, go to 2-11 on the season due to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next game up on the slate featured the Miami Dolphins, who traveled to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. Matchup between 2 young quarterbacks, Colin Kaepernick really just getting his first chance to start in the National Football League in his second season, versus the Miami Dolphins, who is led by Ryan Tannehill in his rookie campaign. Dolphins came out in this game, and their second possession, no one did anything on their first possession. Their second possession of the game, however, was very impressive. Nice mixture of run and pass. They get down to the 7-yard line, the Miami Dolphins. And this is what bad teams do. They implode. They get down to the 7-yard line, 2 consecutive false starts, followed by a sack. They're forced to kick a field goal. I mean, that's exactly the mark of a bad team. You get down, 1st and goal from the 7, and you implode. 2 false starts in a row, a sack, and now you're just looking to just get back into field goal range comfortably to make your field goal now at this point. I mean, you went backwards, excess of about 15 to 20 yards. Now you're looking to just get back into comfortable field goal range. That's what bad teams do. They end up getting a field goal. They go up 3-0. San Francisco gets 2 field goals. They're up 6-3. Right around the midpoint of this game. Then again, what bad teams do. Thigpen muffs a punt at his own 7-yard line. 49ers recover. A few plays later, they're in the end zone. Game's first touchdown. They're up 13-3 at that point. And right there, you knew the Miami Dolphins were getting into the danger zone. Down 10 on the road. You're not a good team. You don't score a lot of points. It's not a position you want to be in. They really never recovered from that fumbled or muffed punt. They lose this football game 23-13. 49ers get back on a winning track. Colin Kaepernick looked pretty good in this game. Didn't really make too many mistakes. Ran the football efficiently. He had a game-sealing touchdown run in this game. He looked good. Solid throwing the football. Really didn't make any mistakes to speak of. He was sacked several times when he hung in the pocket for a little bit too long. But again, they look good as a football team. Defense played well, but Dolphins had opportunities in this game. Again, they're not a good team, and they didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were given to them. The 49ers gave them opportunities to make plays in this game, and they just didn't do it. They just flat out didn't do it. They didn't take advantage of opportunities that came their way, and so they weren't able to get it done. 49ers needed this win. They went back home, and they got well against a bad Dolphins team. After losing a week ago on the road in the division, family business against the St. Louis Rams, they come back and get a win, a much-needed win, to stave off the Green Bay Packers for that second seed in the NFC, and they remain the second seed and holding on to that second first-round bye in the NFC as they move to 9-3-1 on the season. And so, good win for the San Francisco 49ers at home. Meanwhile, Dolphins don't get it done on the road. As to be expected, they're not a good team. They were playing a good team in the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Didn't expect them to get it done. They drop it and go to 5-8 on the season. Let's look at the mistakes in this game. Not really many to speak of. Not many mistakes to speak of. You look at the one mistake here. The Dolphins made that mistake. It was an 8. Failed to hit an open receiver. And this is what I'm talking about. Ryan Tannehill frustrates me more so than any other member of the starting 5. Because When members of the starting five get an open receiver, for the most part, they hit him. They hit him. Tannehill, on the other hand, he misses those guys too often. Again, Brian Hartline streaking wide open down the field. He misses him. This is a touchdown. He hits him in stride. It's a touchdown. Instead, he misses him. And when you don't score points that often, you're not a team that's overly explosive and can score 27 points in the blink of an eye. You need every opportunity that comes your way to be made. You need to take advantage of them. And week after week after week, I find myself saying the same thing about Ryan Tannehill, him missing an open receiver down the field. You can't do that. He did it here. It amounts to another loss by this Miami Dolphins team. So you look at the next game on the slate, and this one was a laugher. Not much to say here. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to waste any time on this game. Arizona Cardinals traveled to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Family business, but again, this is not good family business. This is the worst type of family business because this is a one-sided affair. One side is doing all the talking, the other side is doing all the listening, and there's no back and forth exchange. You're going to sit down and you're going to do whatever I tell you to do. And this is the type of family business that's being ran here between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. The Cardinals are in no position to tell anyone in their division what they are or aren't going to do. They're just going to sit down and listen to what that other member of the family has to say. If they tell them to do something, the Cardinals are going to do it because they don't have any say-so. They're like the little brother in a family of 7 brothers, and you're the youngest. You don't have any say-so. You just do what everyone else tells you to do, or you're going to get bullied around. That's where the Arizona Cardinals are right now. I told you they're the worst team in the National Football League, and they will be for the remainder of the season because they don't have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. They lose this game 58-0. I'm not going to even give you a synopsis of what happened here. You can draw an inference from the score that this was a brutal thrashing at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. Nothing to talk about here. They were embarrassed. We'll talk a little bit about this later, though, because there's something that I want to pull away from this game and talk to you about when we tackle on the extra point after we finish scoring this touchdown. But Seahawks get it done 58-0. They moved to 8-5 on the season. Meanwhile, Card Watch, Cardinals lose their 9th straight after starting the season 4-0. So that's 9 straight defeats for these Cards as we continue Card Watch. It's probably going to get to 12 in a row. But we're going to continue Card Watch anyway. Who knows? Maybe they leap up and grab somebody when they're not looking and end Cards Watch. I doubt it. So we move on to the next matchup. Very disappointing matchup. New Orleans Saints travel to the New Meadowlands to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Giants. Thought that the Saints were going to learn from their mistakes last week against the Atlanta Falcons where Drew Brees turned it over 5 times, threw 5 interceptions, didn't really give his team a chance to win. I thought they were going to learn from their mistakes. I was wrong. They came out in this game. They made mistakes. I mean, first possession, Drew Brees looks like he's going to be hot. Hits Marcus Colston over the middle field. This is a huge gain. Looks like it's about to be a gain of 27, 32. He fumbles the football. Giants recover, and that was basically a sign of things to come. This Saints team, this is a microcosm. This game is a microcosm of their season. They can't get out of their own way. They're not able to beat better teams because they're not a good enough team themselves to stop themselves from making the mistakes that cost you games against the better teams in the National Football League. And I told you that when Drew Brees stepped to the podium after they lost that game to the Chiefs and said, we're going to make the postseason and we're not done. And if you think we're finished, you're wrong and yada, yada, yada. And I told you, hey, I appreciate you being the stand-up guy that you are and trying to be a team leader and you don't want to write this season off. But you were lying to yourself then. You were lying to us. And I told you that you weren't going to make the postseason. And this game was the nail in the coffin. Last week was the nail. They started to hammer it. But it wasn't all the way in. This week, this game put the nail in the coffin. You guys are done. You're not getting out of your grave now. You're finished. And really, everything that happens to the Saints is usually self-inflicted. Marcus Colston fumbles. Jeb Collins fumbles. Drew Brees throws 2 picks. I mean, anytime you felt like they were getting back into this game, they cut it to 7 at one point. And you're thinking, hey, they're right back in this game. 7 or 8. I think it was probably an 8-point lead. They cut it to 8, 1-score game. They scratched, clawed, got back in the game, and then they just self-destructed again. And that's what this team does. Giants took advantage of it. They didn't have a smooth game themselves, but they were efficient on offense. The Saints made enough mistakes for them to take advantage of them. Eli was looking good. They made the plays when they were there to be made, and that's the difference between these two teams. Giants made plays when they were there to be made. Saints gave them the opportunity to make plays when they were there to be made. So the Giants got it done. They go to 8-5 on the season and stay ahead of the rest of the teams in the NFC East at 8-5. Meanwhile, New Orleans Saints drop to 5-8 on the season as they lose this game to the Giants 52-27. That's a lot of points, isn't it? But again, this Saints team isn't a good football team, especially defensively. They stink. They stink on the defensive side of football. And it doesn't help when your offense is turning it over. Doesn't make it any easier on you when you already aren't a good defense and your offense is giving the other team the football in prime position to go get points. So can't blame it all on the defense. This was a team effort to lose this football game against the Giants. Let's look at the mistakes. Let's look at the mistake meter. And the Giants basically had all of the mistakes in this game. And you would think that that would be enough to help the Saints along in this game, but it wasn't. Giants had 7 mistakes in this game. Saints had 2. Let's talk about their mistakes briefly because, as you can see, their mistakes didn't cost them as much as those Saints turnovers cost the Saints. You score 52 points and you have 7 mistakes. Your mistakes must not have been as costly as the other team's mistakes and turnovers. So, Giants had a 3. Extended a possession for the Saints. In the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. They had a 1. They had an opportunity to pick Drew Brees off, but they still picked him off several times in this game. Doesn't matter again. They had a 10. They didn't get points in the red zone. Lawrence Tynes, who has been a sure-footed kicker for this Giants team, missed a field goal in the red zone. Got to come away with points when you're in the red zone. He didn't. They also had 3 twos. A lot of penalties for the Giants of late. Coming into the Redskins game, they were one of the least penalized teams in the league. They had 3 penalties that negated gains of over 15 yards in this game. Usually, those are death sentences. You kill your drive like that, get a penalty, negate big gains, you usually punt the football and the other team takes advantage. Not in this game because the Saints made enough mistakes, enough turnovers to allow them to overcome any mistake, any turnover that they made in this game. And Eli had a pick 6 in this game. So, and that was the 5 that I referenced to earlier. Eli had a pick 6. He put points directly on the scoreboard for the Saints. He threw a pick 6 right to him. Took it to the house. So, can't have that. Can't have it, but again, they were able to overcome those mistakes in this ball game. Saints had a 1 and an 8. The 1 had a chance to pick Eli off, didn't take advantage of it, dropped the pick. That was on the first possession. That was right before they ended up getting a pick 6. But got to catch interceptions when they're there. They didn't catch it, but they ultimately ended up getting it anyway. Pick 6 took it to the house. And they had an 8. Drew Brees had Devery Henderson wide open for a touchdown. And you know Corey Webster has been getting beat of late. He was beaten on this play. He underthrew it, allowed Corey Webster to knock the football away. But he had Corey Webster beat probably by about 3 steps. But again, he didn't lay it out far enough, allowed the Giant defender Corey Webster to knock it away. Simple as this. At the end of the day, the Giants were the better team. They were supposed to win this game, and they got it done. 52-27, 8-5 on the season are the Giants. Still in first place in the NFC East. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints dropped to 5-8, and that's the type of season it's been for the New Orleans Saints. When you have turmoil and controversy in the offseason and it leaks over into the regular season, this is your byproduct here. This is what happens. So Sunday Night Football sees the Detroit Lions traveling to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers. Right now, the Lions are struggling in this division. Right now, they're 0-4 in this division, coming into this matchup against the Packers, handling family business. Right now, they're not handling family business. No one's listening to them. They're like the 7th brother in a family of 7 boys, and they're the youngest. And everyone in the family is telling them what to do, bossing them around, not listening to their opinions, don't care what they have to say. You do what we tell you to do, or else we're going to give you the business. And that's what's happening in this division. No one is listening to what the Lions have to say. They don't care. Just shut up, take this beating, and keep it moving. And so the Packers were next up to get their turn to get seconds of this Detroit Lions team and hand them their 5th loss in this division without any wins. So the Lions were looking to have their voice heard. And when they jumped out to a 14-0 lead in this game, they were probably yelling, is anyone listening to us now? Yeah, we were listening briefly, but again, you're the Lions. You don't win this game. Did anyone out there think that they were going to win this game when the Lions were winning 14-0? I know I didn't. I can't speak for you. Never thought that they were going to come away with a victory in Lambeau. It's a reason why it's been over 2 decades since they won in Lambeau Field. They don't get it done in Green Bay. And not only that, they don't sustain leads. They don't win games after they jump out to a lead. We saw it last week against Indianapolis. We saw it 2 weeks ago on Thanksgiving against the Texans. They don't hold on to leads. That's why they came into this game at 4-8. They don't know how to win football games. So I know the Packers were going to come and catch this team. It was only a matter of time before the Packers revved it up, stopped making mistakes, and got the job done. They started to run the football. Isn't it funny? It's December, it's cold, it's snowing, it's Lambeau, and all of a sudden the Packers can run the football now. You know, guys we've never heard of getting an opportunity. They're running from all different directions. They're running the football, and they ran it effectively on this Detroit Lions team. I mean, the run game was the reason they won this game. And normally you can't say that about the Packers. Normally, it's the right arm of Aaron Rodgers and his legs. Those 3 items usually get the Packers by on a week-to-week basis. But it was the running game of the Packers that won them this football game. That timely turnovers, they got the job done. And although the Lions jumped out to a 14-0 lead, Packers got even, and you knew once they got even, they were leading. And they get this one 27-20. It really wasn't even that close. Lions get a late field goal to cut it to a 1-score game, try to get the onside kick, doesn't work. So Packers go to 9-4. Meanwhile, the Lions are the inverse. They're 4-9 on the season. Now they're 0-5 in this division. And again, no one's listening to the Lions and what they have to say in this division. They don't hold any weight. No one's afraid of them. And so you just be quiet, go back to the bottom of the division where you belong, and stay there. And they had a chance to have some say-so in this division. No one was listening to them all season long. Here's your opportunity to have your voice heard. You have to play the Bears one more time. You had this Packers team up. You had a chance to make your voice heard. And again, you were silenced. And that's the Detroit Lions season in a nutshell. Silent. Haven't heard from this team all year long. They haven't been the team that they were last year that made the postseason all season long. So Green Bay gets it done. They stay 1 game ahead of the Bears in this division. And all of a sudden, that game next week at Soldier Field against the Bears, it's probably for the division. It was probably going to be for the division anyway, but now, without a doubt, with 2 games left after this game, if they beat the Bears and go up 2 games with 2 games left in this division, it's over because they will hold the tiebreaker. Bears will only be able to tie them. They'll win the division. So, for all intents and purposes, that game next week is for the division. Because if the Packers win, game over. Packers win the division. If they lose, then that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. That'll be a whole different issue. We'll talk about it if it happens. I don't see it happening though. But Packers get it done. They're 9-4 on the season, and now they're sitting pretty atop the NFC North division. That's a touchdown. Go ahead and throw it up. Want to tack on this quick extra point. Now, I said I was going to come back to that Seattle-Arizona debacle later on, and here it is. And the reason why I want to touch upon that game, yeah, it was 58-0. But Ken Wisenhunt is probably going to be fired because of this game. Pete Carroll treated this game like a Pac-10 game. You know, he treated this like he was back at SC, and it was a Pac-10 opponent. It was Arizona or Washington State, and he just stockpiled points. And they were still throwing the football with under 5-6 minutes to go in this game. Matt Flynn was in there flinging it around. They were looking to score more points. They were treating this like it was standings in the BCS race, and they needed to pile up points. This isn't Pee Wee football. You're not 10 years old. There's no mercy rule. I don't feel bad, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about, oh, that's bad sportsmanship. They didn't need to be. You want to stop the carnage? You want the onslaught to stop? You stop it yourself. Show some resolve. Show some fight. You stop them from scoring 58 points. No one's here to legislate anything. You want that to stop? You stop it on your own. I just sit back and laugh. You give up 58 points, you don't score any of your own, that's on you. So, I said all that to say that Ken Wisenhunt probably won't survive because of that game. It's one thing to put up a valiant effort, but you lose 27-21. Your quarterback situation is a mess, but you hang in there. You lose 13-19. Quarterbacks, again, don't get it done. You lose the game. It's another thing to just totally get obliterated 58-0 and not show up. It's not Ken Wisenhunt's fault, though. He doesn't need to be fired. He's a good head coach. And I don't think that he deserves to be fired. Now, I will say this. Unless Ken Wisenhunt on draft day and during the first stages and wee hours of free agency jumped on the table and said, don't sign anybody, don't draft anybody, we're fine at the quarterback position, I can get it done with Kevin Kolb and John Skelton. Unless he did that and was adamant about it and said, hey, look, we don't need any other quarterbacks. You want to draft a quarterback, you waste a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick on someone. You don't use one of my early round draft picks. You don't spend any of our money on a quarterback. We're fine. Make sure that we keep Kevin Kolb. We pay him all that money that's due to him because he can get it done. Unless he was adamant about that and that's what he was talking about, then he doesn't need to be fired because he doesn't have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback in this league, you don't stand a chance. The Kolb, Skelton, Lindley connection wasn't going to win many games in this season. And granted, you could argue, and this is the point of view that the management in Arizona probably has. Look, you had the same 4 quarterbacks when we were 4-0 as you do now. What has changed since then? Much has changed. Kevin Kolb's no longer healthy. And your defense was playing better then. And it was the beginning of the season. You can catch teams napping at the beginning of the season. Teams are still really getting into their own. You can catch a team like the Patriots at home, slipping, beginning of the season. That's what they did. They caught the Patriots slipping at home. Gostowski missed a late game field goal. You escaped Foxborough with a 19-21 win. Like to see you try that now. Patriots are scoring up over 30 points every game just about now. Like to see you hold the Patriots to 18 points now. Wouldn't happen. But early in the season, those things can happen. You demolished the Eagles. We didn't know they were going to be terrible, but you demolished the Eagles. You look good and you held the Seattle Seahawks down at home. Your opening game of the season. Like to see you try that now. You did try that. You lost 58-0. So, it's different now than it was then. Then it was okay. It was the beginning of the season. You could sneak up on teams. Now we know who you are. You're a team that doesn't have a quarterback. You can't sneak up on anyone with that funk that you have at the quarterback position. So, it's not Ken Wisenhunt's fault. He can only coach. He can't go out on the field and play. He took John Skelton out of the game because he wasn't getting it done. He put Ryan Lindley in the game. He throws 4 interceptions. He takes Ryan Lindley out of the game because he's not getting it done. He puts John Skelton back in the game. He throws 4 interceptions. What do you want the man to do? He can only coach. He can't play too. And this goes to what I was saying about Larry Fitzgerald. The person that I feel the most sorrow for in this situation, Larry Fitzgerald. Because if he had a quarterback that was comparable to Kurt Warner for the duration of his career, we'd be talking about Larry Fitzgerald as probably one of the best receivers ever in NFL history. I would venture to say that he would threaten several of Jerry Rice's all-time records if he had a quarterback that could get him the football year in and year out. But He doesn't. He hasn't. It's been chronicled. He's had every quarterback that you can imagine under the sun. It's a shame because I don't understand how he's had the career that he's had to this point with some of the guys that he's had out in Arizona as his quarterback. I mean, just looking at the trio of quarterbacks he's had this year, ridiculous. And he's had to deal with that for many years out in Arizona. You know, the only years that he had were his golden years with Kurt Warner. That was it. Just can you imagine if he was like Reggie Wayne? Reggie Wayne has been spoiled his whole career. All Peyton Manning, and then he seamlessly transitions from Peyton Manning. Yeah, he had that one stinking year with Curtis Painter, Dan Orlovsky, and all those guys. Kerry Collins. Yeah, but he goes from that back to Andrew Luck. He feels good again. It's all good in Reggie Wayne's neighborhood right now. Can't say the same thing for Larry Fitzgerald. But it's not about Larry Fitzgerald right now. He'll still have a job next year. Ken Whisenhunt won't. He won't be the Cardinals coach. They've already come out and said today he'll be the coach for the rest of the season, which means, translation, he's coaching the rest of these games. He's done after that. When you lose 58-0, heads roll after that. You don't get to get blown out that severely and think you're going to keep your job. And it's a shame because he doesn't deserve to be fired. You know, Raheem Morris got blown out 51-3, 48-3 against San Francisco last year. They lost 12 straight. He lost his job. Wade Phillips got embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers, 2-3 years ago on Sunday Night Football. He lost his job the next day. You don't get blown out like this, and he's going to lose 12 straight as Ken Whisenhunt. They're not winning another game this season. So he'll do the same thing Raheem Morris and the Buccaneers did last year. Lose 12 straight, not win another game. So he's probably going to have the same fate as Raheem Morris. And I don't think that this is what happened to Raheem Morris. They absolutely quit on Raheem Morris a year ago. That's not what's happening to Ken Whisenhunt. They're just not any good. That quarterback position is putrid. It's not his fault, but he'll land on his feet somewhere. But it's a shame because everything that the Cardinals have turned into, and I'm not talking about what you saw on the field on Sunday, that 58-0 fiasco. I'm talking about them thinking that they are a solid franchise, them thinking that they're a winning franchise, them thinking that they have a shot when the season begins. They were a morbid franchise when he took over. They were losers. That's all they knew. That's all they know how to do was lose. He turned this into a winning franchise. He took them to their first ever Super Bowl. He deserves a shot. But they're going to fire him, and I think it's prematurely. But again, when you lose like they lost on Sunday, you usually don't survive. And when you lose 12 straight, you usually don't keep your job. And so Ken Whisenhunt doesn't deserve the fate that he's about to get at the end of this season. All right, let's touch on Monday Night Football really quickly. New England Patriots looking to face off against Houston Texans. Big matchup in the AFC landscape. Really, this could ultimately come down to who's going to be number one as far as seeding is concerned in the AFC. Right now, the Patriots can only get as far as 2. They win this game, they open up a whole nother avenue to themselves because if the Texans struggle down the stretch, let's say they lose their last 3 out of 4, Patriots run the table. We're talking about the Patriots, not the Texans, as the team with home field advantage throughout. So this game could go a long way towards the Patriots securing the number 1 slot. I think the Patriots will get the number 2 seed if they win out. They have that on lock. They own the tiebreaker over the Broncos and currently have a better mark than the Ravens. So they'll win the number 2 seed if they win out. If they win out and the Texans struggle, they can get the number 1 seed if they win this game, though. This is what it all boils down to for me. This is just another game in December for the New England Patriots. This is what they do. Yeah, the Texans are going to serve as a litmus test for them. This is going to be a barometer, a gauge as to where they are in the AFC right now. They're at home. They're playing a good Texans team. They think they should be able to beat them at home, though. And that's all the Patriots are looking at this as. Another big regular season matchup between us and another good team. That's all they're looking at it as. They're used to this. A lot of teams around the league circle the Patriots on their calendar. For the Texans, they've already come out. Andre Johnson has already come out and said, yeah, this is our biggest game in franchise history. I hope he meant regular season-wise because you've played playoff games already. So playoff games trump any regular season game. So for you to say that, asinine. But if you're talking about regular season, maybe it is. You don't need to divulge that information to us, though. You don't need to tell us that's how you guys are feeling in your locker room. Because what that says is you're going to put a lot of undue pressure on yourself to go out and perform. And what that translates to is mistakes. You're going to lose this game because you look at this as a postseason game, when it's really just a regular season game that you want to see how good you are. You're on the road, a good team that you're playing in the Patriots. See how good you are. Go out on the road and see what you can get done. Like you did against the Bears a few weeks back. You didn't come out and say, yeah, this is the biggest game we've had. It's just another game. It's a regular season game. You need to try and win it. But if you don't, at least put forth a good effort, good showing. Let these Patriots know that even on your home field, we almost got you. If you come to Houston in the playoffs, you won't get us. That's all you need to do, even if you don't win this game. But instead, you've come out and made this game more important than what it should be, and so you're going to lose this game. I still think it's going to be close. Still think that the Texans are going to put up a fight in this game, but I think the Patriots are going to get them. And I think the Patriots are going to run away with it toward the end. They're going to win this game 27-20 are the Patriots. It won't be as close as the score indicates. Texas will tack on a late touchdown to make it 27-20 and give themselves a chance with an onside kick later in the game, but to no avail. They'll lose this game 27-20. Patriots will be 10-3 and will leapfrog the Ravens and the Broncos in the standings as they will go to the second seed in the AFC. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans, their standings won't change. They'll still be number one in the AFC overall. However, they'll be that much closer to the Patriots, who will be breathing down their necks now, looking over their shoulders. Will the Texans be as they continue to play their games moving forward the rest of the season as they drop to 11-2 after this loss to the Patriots? And that's it for me. You know all the ways to contact the show to view it: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, inbox. It's been a long episode. Don't really feel like getting into all of that. Just know that I want to see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place. And as always, take care of yourself. Enjoy the Monday Night Football. We'll come back and talk about it tomorrow on Tuesday, among other things. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Take care.